My two brothers were murdered on 9/11.
I live every single day without my father.
FBI files show the Saudi government was involved.
This golf tournament is taking place 50 miles from ground zero.
It's disgusting.
Worse than a slap in the face.
You're taking money from an evil regime.
These are 3,000 Americans that were killed on American soil.
How much money to turn your back on your own country?
200 million? Sure. I'll forget about their atrocities.
I'm never gonna forget, never gonna forgive the golfers for taking this blood money.
Hi there everyone, this is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth, and that opening clip that you just saw there was an ad that just aired on television that was put together by a group called 9/11 Justice. They're made up of some family members of the victims of 9/11, how you can see are clearly absolutely livid that Donald Trump would dare to host this Saudi-backed golf tournament at one of his golf courses. As we see here, nobody has gotten to the bottom of 9/11. Trump defends hosting Saudi-backed LIV golf tournament and shakes hands with MSB's personal banker at his Bedminster club to the fury of 9/11 families. It says here, Donald Trump defended hosting the Saudi-backed LIV golf tournament at his Bedminster club on Thursday amid a backdrop of fury from 9/11 families, telling reporters no one has gotten to the bottom of who is to blame for the attack. So we're going to talk about all of that and much, much more in this video, guys. But real quickly, just before we do, I'd ask that you check me out at pressfortruth.ca/donate if you appreciate my efforts to bring you this info. There you can do a one-time donation with PayPal, you can do Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. You can join me on Subscribestar, or you can sign up right here for a monthly reoccurring contribution. You can also send an e-transfer to dan@pressfortruth.ca, or you can send things to my P.O. Box as well, guys. Links for all of that are located in the description below. Thank you so much to everyone who does take the time and effort to contribute to my efforts here to bring you this information. All right, guys, so first of all, if you're not familiar with what's been currently going on in the golf world, I'm sure people already know that when it comes to the world of professional golf, all the best men in the world aspire to play in the biggest tournament, which everybody knows the PGA is the tip of the spear. That's what you aspire to play in as a pro golfer. This, of course, is the Professional Golfers Association of America, right? So it's got all the big names, Mickelson, Tiger Woods, you know, all of them. So now you got the Saudis sitting here saying, why should they have a monopoly on like the golf world of sports, you know? Why should they be the only pro major tournament that all these pros aspire to play in? Why can't we launch our own tournament that would rival the PGA? And we can do that just by offering these guys way more money. So, you know, the Saudis with their billions and billions of oil money have done just that. They've launched their own tournament, and a lot of pro golfers are starting to make their way over there because they don't care about the politics of the government that's hosting this game, this tournament that they want to play in. They care about getting a big fat paycheck for their golf skills, which they've dedicated like their whole lives to. So this is where a lot of the controversy is really stemming from. But when it gets into Saudi Arabian involvement, guys, this is something I've been covering for literally over 2 decades, you know, ever since day one I started looking into this. And I remember, like, way back then, 20 years ago, all these politicians and pundits, these newscasters saying, there's got to be Saudi Arabian involvement in this. I mean, their hands must be all over this. And so an investigation was launched, into 9/11 to get to the bottom of what happened, right? And this was a brilliant move by the ones who actually carried out 9/11 was to keep the now infamous 28 pages redacted. They withheld 28 pages, and it was done on design because predictably they knew that these same newscasters and politicians are going to say, see, they're hiding Saudi involvement. They are clearly covering up the fact that the Saudis are involved. So the powers that ought not to be, who actually carried off 9/11, have had that ace up their sleeve for, you know, ever since the very beginning. They put that in there as a limited hangout, and then of course you fast forward like a decade and a half or whatever it is, 15 years later, and this comes up again, and the pages are redacted, and people see that, oh, there is a little bit of Saudi money involved, which is where the limited hangout comes into play. It shifts the focus off of who the real perpetrators of the crime were, and the fact that it was an inside job, and it shifts the focus over to bad men in the Middle East did this. So that was what that was all about. Like I said, I've been covering this for so long, ever since the beginning. I actually made a full-length feature documentary film about 9/11 called 9/11 Decade of Deception, and I just noticed today when preparing for this video that it now has over 2 million views on YouTube, which is, it's nice to know that a piece that I produced exposing what actually went down on 9/11 is being shared by that many people. But that's because the research is solid, the research is on point, and when it comes to exposing this so-called Saudi Arabian involvement, that is also something that I've been doing since the very beginning. So I want to briefly play for you an interview that I did with my friend James Corbett about the redacted, missing 28 pages and the so-called involvement of the Saudi Arabian government, because, man, he really nails it in this interview. We get into it in depth. This was like 7 or 8 years ago. This was back when I had my own PFT studio and I was doing live shows. For anybody who maybe is not aware, that used to be a thing here. But yeah, check it out. Just briefly, I want you to hear it from my friend James Corbett's perspective about this idea that the powers that ought not to be, who truly carried this out, shifted the focus from themselves and onto the Saudi Arabians. Check it out.
Saudi Arabia threatens to crash the dollar if Congress exposes their role in the 9/11 attacks. A bombshell report by the New York Times has revealed that Saudi Arabia, the third largest holder of U.S. Treasury bills in the world behind China and Japan, has warned the Obama administration and Congress that they will begin liquidating their U.S. assets if Congress passes a bill allowing for the Saudi government to be held responsible for their role in the terror attacks of 9/11. So, James, what do you make of this? It almost seems as this 28 pages over the last few years has been an ace up the sleeve, or some sort of thing they've just been waiting to use. What's your make of this coming out now in the last week?
This is, it is absolutely 100% a limited hangout that, as you say, was implanted in the official story of 9/11 since the very beginning. And we have to understand that there are several layers of spin behind which the actual story is hiding here. And surprise, surprise, guess what? The real truth about 9/11 isn't going to come out through 60 Minutes puff pieces talking about, quoting Senator Bob Graham or Porter Goss or characters like these who were intimately involved in what happened on 9/11. So we have to question why it's coming out right now. Firstly, with regards to the idea that Saudi is dumping this money because they're going to be exposed, even that is a much more complicated story. One of the things that Saudi Arabia is preparing for, much less protesting, is the idea that if they are sued for 9/11, then their U.S. assets will be confiscated and they will not be able to divest themselves of their U.S. assets. So this would just be a preparatory move for that, more so than a threat. But even regardless, the idea that this will crash the dollar is highly dubious, because over the past 20 months, China has divested itself of $780 billion of U.S. treasuries, and the U.S. treasury market is still going strong. So it is possible to absorb such a shock over, and I mean, the full treasury market is 15 trillion. So a lot of that is hype and spin, but all of this is directed towards what you pointed out there is really a type of geopolitical warfare that's going on right now between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. This has always been the implanted little bit in the 9/11 story that they censored, they covered up, they put in the classified 28 pages, and they told everyone, hey, look, these are the classified 28 pages you can't see about foreign involvement. And at the time, everyone everywhere was reporting it was Saudi Arabia. They're covering up Saudi Arabia. It's about Saudi Arabia. I remember seeing those reports on CBC News back 14 years ago, whenever the report first came out. I have a front page magazine article from July 2003 that links to the New York Post, that is every single aspect of the story that 60 Minutes is now reporting on was all there in 2003 in mainstream publications. Why is it coming out now? Why in this way? Why is there a full forecourt press about it? And why are we suddenly now being directed to hate Saudi Arabia? This is clearly about geopolitical machinations, not about 9/11 truth.
Yeah, I would encourage you guys to watch the rest of that interview. We get into it a lot more in depth. As James says, there's so many layers to the onion that need to be peeled back before we can truly get to the core. So I will include a link to that interview in the description if you want to get a little bit more in depth about this idea of Saudi involvement. Speaking of James Corbett and his excellent work covering the 9/11 movement, really, over the years. He's been a fantastic source of information. And a few years back he put out a video that also went viral, millions of views, since being taken down off of YouTube, of course. Hits a little too hard with the good, truthful information. It was called 9/11, a conspiracy theory. And I'll briefly play that for you because he explains the 9/11 conspiracy theory in less than 5 minutes, in a very smart and cheeky way. Even if you've seen this before, guys, give it a watch again. Not only is it super entertaining, but it's jam-packed with solid information that it's good to, remind yourself of. So really quickly, here's James Corbett's 9/11, a conspiracy theory. Check it out.
On the morning of September 11th, 2001, 19 men armed with box cutters, directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world, using a satellite phone and a laptop, directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world, overpowering the passengers and the military combat-trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor. These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York. While in Washington, a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon in the budget analyst office where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10th, 2001. Luckily, the news anchors knew who did it within minutes.
Osama bin Laden.
The pundits knew within hours.
Osama bin Laden.
The administration knew within the day.
Terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbored them.
And the evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
But for some reason, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists demanded an investigation into the greatest attack on American soil in history. That investigation was delayed, underfunded, set up to fail, a conflict of interest, and a cover-up from start to finish. It was based on testimony extracted through torture, the records of which were destroyed. It failed to mention the existence of WTC-7, Able Danger, P-TECH, Sibel Edmonds, OBL and the CIA, and the drills of hijacked aircraft being flown into buildings that were being simulated at the precise same time that those events were actually happening. It was lied to by the Pentagon, the CIA, the Bush administration, and as for Bush and Cheney, Well, no one knows what they told it because they testified in secret, off the record, not under oath, and behind closed doors. It didn't bother to look at who funded the attacks because that question is ultimately of little practical significance. Still, the 9/11 Commission did brilliantly answering all of the questions the public had, except most of the victims' family members' questions, and pinned blame on all the people responsible, although no one so much as lost their job, determining the attacks were
failure of imagination.
Because
nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
Except the Pentagon, FEMA, NORAD, and the NRO. The DIA destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data on Able Danger, but that's okay because it probably wasn't important. The SEC destroyed their records on the investigation into the insider trading before the attacks, but that's okay because destroying the records of the largest investigation in SEC history is just part of routine record keeping. NIST has classified the data that they used for their model of WTC-7's collapse, but that's okay because knowing how they made their model of the collapse would jeopardize public safety. The FBI has argued that all material related to their investigation of 9/11 should be kept secret from the public, but that's okay because the FBI probably has nothing to hide. This man never existed, nor is anything he had to say worthy of your attention, and if you say otherwise, you are a paranoid conspiracy theorist and deserve to be shunned by all of humanity. Likewise him, and her. And her, and her, and him. Osama bin Laden lived in a cave fortress in the hills of Afghanistan, but somehow got away. Then he was hiding out in Tora Bora, but somehow got away. Then he lived in Abbottabad for years, taunting the most comprehensive intelligence dragnet employing the most sophisticated technology in the history of the world for a decade, releasing video after video with complete impunity and getting younger and younger as he did so, before finally being found in a daring SEAL team raid which wasn't recorded on video, in which he didn't resist or use his wife as a human shield, and in which these crack special forces operatives panicked and killed this unarmed man, supposedly the best source of intelligence about those dastardly terrorists on the entire planet. Then they dumped his body in the ocean before telling anyone about it. Then a couple dozen of that team's members died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. This is the story of 9/11, brought to you by the media which told you the hard truths about
his head could be seen to move violently forward.
And
they took the babies out of the incubators.
And
mobile production facilities.
And
the rescue of Jessica Lynch.
If you have any questions about this story, you are a batshit paranoid tinfoil dog-abusing baby hater and will be reviled by everyone. If you love your country and or freedom, happiness, rainbows, rock and roll, puppy dogs, apple pie, and your grandma, you will never ever express doubts about any part of this story to anyone. Ever. This has been a public service announcement by the Friends of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA, SEC, MSM, White House, NIST, and the 9/11 Commission. Because ignorance is strength.
Ignorance is strength. Indeed. You gotta love, James Corbett and that solid piece. But as for today's video, guys, let's just take a quick look at this article. As we see here, Trump battling the mid-morning heat in his signature MAGA hat and white polio shirt teed off at the pro-amateur event where he will be joined later by his son Eric, Caitlyn Jenner, Charles Barkley, and pro golfers Bryson DeChambeau and Dustin Johnson. He was spotted shaking hands with Yasser Al-Rahman, Prince Mohammed bin Salman's personal banker, on the fairway. When asked about the controversy, he told the ESPN reporters, "Nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have." 15 of the 19 terrorists involved in the attack were Saudi, including Osama bin Laden. Officially, the Saudi Arabian government has denied any involvement, but the US spent months investigating whether it had any ties to the attacks. It was a fruitless investigation which was laid bare in declassified documents last year. The LIV series, a new venture launched by the Saudis to take on the PGA, is splitting the golf world. And then it gets into some of the stuff about what's going on in golf. But in terms of this, as they say, fruitless investigation, which was laid bare in declassified documents last year, again, this touches on this idea that it has been exposed that the Saudis are largely the ones responsible for what actually took place there on 9/11. Once again, shifting the blame away from who the true perpetrators of that crime really was. Now, I gotta say, if you're thinking that Donald Trump is going to in some way bring some sort of smoking gun of 9/11 truth to the world, don't hold your breath. I mean, he's promised 9/11 truth on his campaign tour before, and a lot of people are thinking that he may very well run in 2024, and he may invoke this idea and try to drum up the support of the 9/11 truth community out there. But as I said, I wouldn't hold your breath. He's promised it before and has completely failed on those promises. But that's not to say that the truth isn't out there and that the truth can't be found, because some of us who have been doing the research for 21 years have come across a lot of things that would suggest this was indeed an inside job. Again, if you haven't seen my over 2-hour documentary film called Decade of Deception, released in 2015, don't forget to check the links in the description below to where you can find that. Bone up on your on your 9/11 truth info, and you know, if you're a skeptic, maybe try to debunk me. You know, maybe try to watch the film and debunk the facts that were put together there. And I would encourage you to do so, because this is one of the most important events in my generation, certainly, that was really the trigger for a lot of the tyranny that we are currently seeing today. So it's so important that people understand that moving forward. So just wanted to bring all of this to your attention today, guys. Once again, if you do appreciate my efforts to do so, don't forget to check me out at pressfortruth.ca/donate. The links for all of this are going to be located in the description below on whatever platform you happen to be watching this on. So if you're on my website, for example, they won't be there. There's, you know, just too much stuff to put there on my site, but I have it in the description of every video platform where you're watching this. So if you're on BitChute, or if you're on Odyssey, or Minds, or Float, or Rumble, you know, or Hive, or maybe even YouTube, wherever you happen to be watching this, just click more, or, you know, expand, or whatever it is, so you can see the description, all the links, all the sources, so you can do your due diligence into the things that I say. But then also the links to where you can support my efforts. I forgot to mention, that's something that James Corbett did with his 9/11 truth conspiracy video, is that he put a transcript together. And look at this, he hyperlinks to all of the sources for all of the things he is saying. So you can go in and check all of these claims out for yourself. So again, this is why he's such a fantastic resource of information on these things. So again, another reason to check the links in the description below, guys. And that's all for today. Just wanted to bring all of that to your attention. Once again, don't forget to click that thumbs up button, share this video with your friends and family who you think need to see it the most, and stay tuned. We're gonna have more video reports coming very soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth.
We all want truth. The truth will set you free.